Hello everyone, I'm the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about a potential Christmas snowstorm. Yes, that's right, a snowstorm that could be making its way across the central US and maybe even parts of the eastern US just in time for Christmas or just after Christmas, depending on the region of the country. We're going to break it all down in this video, so be sure to stay tuned for the whole video and to not miss a beat. And before I get started, be sure to subscribe, of course, as 97% of you are still not subscribed. Uh, and of course, ring the bell notifications as well so you don't miss out on any crucial weather content. And we're going to go ahead and get right into the video. First, we're going to start off by looking at our PNA, right? Our group of oscillations that I usually like to do at the beginning, towards the beginning of these videos. So we can kind of see, like, could we be staying in this kind of pattern for a while here? And you can see we're in a positive PNA according to the data right now. So that will kind of back up, potentially more in the way of some snow, some cold and snow, especially for the central and eastern parts of the United States. If we look at the North Atlantic Oscillation, now this one is the opposite. Typically, you would want this one to be in the negative to see kind of like a lot of snow and cold, at least for the east and central. But this one is trending downward, but it is positive right now as well. And if we look at the Arctic Oscillation, kind of operates in the same way as the North Atlantic Oscillation. You can see that's also going down rapidly, I might add, or is forecast to, right? But kind of still hovering around that zero line. So the patterns do kind of support, but even if these were in a positive, that doesn't mean we can't see a snowstorm. It just means, maybe generally speaking, we won't see this pattern for a while. But nevertheless, there is a snowstorm to talk about that could potentially be working its way across the central and eastern U.S. right around Christmas time. So maybe potential Christmas snowstorm here. So we time it out here. You can see pretty much New Year's Eve. This is like pretty much midnight around New Year's Eve. All right, so into Saturday, or sorry, into Sunday morning, excuse me. We can see some snow in some parts, kind of like along the Rockies here, maybe parts of western Nebraska. Right, nothing too major. But as we start to hit throughout Christmas Eve, you can start to see maybe some more snow breaking out across Nebraska and the Dakotas, right? And of course, these are not just mountainous regions; these are real lower lying areas, right? And you can see it moving up there as we head into the 24th. And then as the storm, like we kind of see the first low move to the north, but watch as the secondary low kind of takes shape here. You can see it start to drop a little bit, drop a few millibars in pressure, starting to intensify, pull some more cold air down, right? Because we got the high pressure now that's parked over the Rockies. So that with the low pressure are combining to bring in that colder air from Canada, especially on the western side. And we start to see some snow and some ice break out across Iowa, Minnesota, maybe even Nebraska. Now, is this going to be like a blockbuster blizzard? No, but that doesn't mean we can't see some impacts, right? And you can see it kind of move across the Northeast, primarily rain, but still some snow on the backside. And this is, at this point, a couple or a few days after Christmas. Right? And this is the 12Z model run of the GFS, and it's now like the model, the 18Z run has come out. So in just a little bit, I'll give you an update on that. But we can kind of use this as a comparison. So as you can see, for the total snowfall, still a couple inches, few inches from the Dakotas, Minnesota down to Kansas, right? Maybe even some snow again across the interior portions of the Northeast. All right, so here is now the updated run, right? So that was the 12Z because when I was setting up the model, or setting up the video, I should say, that was the run that was out at the time. But now the updated GFS run, you can see kind of similar, right? A little area of light snow as the low moves its way to the north, about 1,006 millibars of pressure. Nothing too crazy, right? Some cold air on the backside, thrown in here by this high pressure system, kind of allowing for that snow to develop. But then watch as this southern branch again kind of starts to form on the backside, and now they kind of upgrade into more robust area of snowfall across Nebraska and Iowa, Minnesota, Kansas, right? Kind of sitting there and just spiraling around, right? And you can see it's pulling in its own cold air, as you can see here. Right, kind of looping in that cold air with the assistance of the high pressure to the west. Right, and then the low moves up to the northeast. Still primarily rain for the northeast, but again, backside of it could be some snowfall around a couple days after Christmas or so. So here is the snowfall total according to the GFS state map, just a different, more updated model run. You can see more 6 to 12, even some pockets of 12 plus. Not sure if it's going to be that high, but we could see some heavier snowfall again wherever that low does sit and stall. We get that cold air to trade in on the backside. So something there by the GFS. Again, they did upgrade the snowfall totals in their latest run. So again, these might be a little bit high, but there is a point here, and then is that there could be a lot of snowfall here from this system. And the GFS isn't the only model. All right, we have the Canadian model up next. And of course, as this, we get closer to the date, we'll be able to show models like the NAM and the high resolution model. So of course, be sure to stay tuned for updates because of course this is a major travel day as well. Got to keep that in mind, and that's what makes the storm even more significant as well. Um, Broader swath of mountain snowfall is what I'm noticing here on the Canadian model. Right, we see a broad area, at least in comparison to the GFS, it's a more broader area of snowfall, right? And I would say the storm even looks more robust out of the gate, right? Maybe it's only 1,007 millibars of pressure, but we still got a decent area of snow, sleet, ice running from southeastern Colorado all the way up to Dakotas, Minnesota. A decent swath. I would say enough to maybe throw some winter storm watches and warnings out there. That's my opinion from forming from this model. You can see the low kind of starts to really slow down, kind of turn north a little bit, and that allows for that western side to be right here, and we see the cold air getting pulled down just like this. All right, so you can see again snow, sleet, ice, all the mix across the Dakotas, and the Nebraska, again, maybe even parts of Kansas as well. And then again, the low moves into northeast. Now, interesting with the Canadian models that they actually show freezing rain and ice for the northeast. All right, so essentially what that means is that the atmosphere is warm, right? Because that's why it's primarily rain, but there's some cold air kind of left behind from the last system at the surface, that could still allow some freezing rain, even though it's still raining, in the atmosphere, but it's cold enough at the surface to support ice. So of course that could be certainly a scenario that plays out as well. And again, just like the GFS, they also show some snow on the backside of that system. So this probably won't stick around long enough to be a New Year system. All right, like that would be a separate system if that were to occur. Their snowfall totals are even more bullish as of right now because they have an area of over 2 feet in South Dakota, but they do show a pretty wide swath of 12 to 18, 12 to 24 inches across Nebraska and South Dakota. But definitely for sure, at least 3 to 6 inches of snow in this broader area would be a more accurate representation at this point. And again, do remember this is still a few days out, although we are getting pretty close to the storm's arrival because again, it would be early next week if it were to arrive. Here we have the European model. Right, you can see again some snow across the Rockies. I'd say that this is a good in between. It kind of shows a little bit more robust than the GFS by a little bit, but not as strong as the Canadian has it. This is also the most updated model run of the European model. You can see again, low starts to stall, right? Really slow down, turn north, and strengthen a little bit. All those things allow for that cold air to be pulled down the western side. Again, with the assistance of the high pressure system, to really crank out the snow here from the Dakotas again on down to portions of Kansas. All right, and you can see again, it does start as rain for some areas, so that could also lessen your snowfall totals, right? Like, for example, 10 inches of snow could fall really like through the air, but does 10 inches end up on the ground? Generally not. So that could also be a thing that could happen here because some warmer areas, kind of starting out with some rainfall. So we take a look at the European here on the snowfall totals. Keep in mind, this is assuming a flat rate of 10 to 1, so 10 inches of snow for every inch of rain. Of course, the Kuchera models the Kuchera versions that are offered on the other models shows a more accurate representation, but nevertheless, still a few inches of snow and even some areas over 6 inches from South Dakota down to Nebraska and Kansas. So again, will this be a blockbuster system? Most likely not, but that does not mean that the impacts, won't be significant because they certainly still could be, especially looking at some of these model runs. Now, if you look at the CFS here, to kind of take a little bit more of a look afterwards, you might think, oh, what about New Year's? What about, what about all these other holiday weekends in store? Those are certainly very far out, especially ones after New Year's. But looks like a warmer pattern, warmer temperatures, at least according to the CFS model, could stay in place. You can kind of see it start to recede to the north, maybe some cooler air for the south. All right, that would kind of correspond with our El Nino kind of pattern here over the next couple of weeks. Maybe some increased precipitation from now till the 28th, of course, with that storm. That makes a lot of sense. But maybe after that, maybe the pattern switches a little bit. Maybe we start to get a little bit of drier times. All right, and after this, we're kind of getting the mid-end January. Gets a little bit far out in time. This is the end of January. So maybe a little bit of pattern switch, right? Some wetter times, especially for the East Coast. We have those two major coastal systems. Those were crazy. And of course, now we got this storm making its way across the central United States. If we start to take a look a little bit further out in time, so this is the 27th until New Year's Eve. Again, you can kind of see this kind of what the CFS model was starting to show a little bit, right? You'll notice the correlation to this model with the Climate Prediction Center outlook. The South maybe a little bit running a little bit below average, but majority of the country, especially the northern parts, have the highest chance to see above normal temperatures. As for precipitation, looks like the coastlines, both the both the East Coast and the West Coast here, above normal precip, as well as places like Alaska, and then pretty much the whole center, the middle third of the country is pretty much engulfed, or middle two-thirds, I should say, is just engulfed with that, that dry zone, right? So it's gonna be overall drier. And again, this would be after that Christmas snowstorm that we were talking about in this video rolls through. So this is the 27th through the 31st. So like I said, after this Christmas storm that is set to move across the U.S., looks like as we get, again, saw with the CFS model, looks like it'll be dying down in terms of precip. At least that's how the pattern holds. Again, the oscillations don't really, again, we are in a positive PNA, but there's not a lot of cold air being dispersed. There's not a lot of moisture. So all those things are going to lead to some drier times. If we look at the 29th to the 4th now, looks like some cooler times for the, the Gulf Coast, maybe up to the southern mid-Atlantic, while again, the north and the northwest staying on the warmer side. And as for the precip, again, the northern parts of the country a little bit drier, maybe even parts of the interior southeast as well, while the coastline, like the Gulf Coast and the southwest, maybe a little bit above normal in the precip. And this is again for December 29th through January 4th. And if we go out a little bit further in time, before I head to my last graphic here, this is December 30th through January 12th. And again, cooler for parts of the south, warmer for parts of the north. This is pretty much your token El Nino forecast here, your El Nino pattern, if you will. And this almost is as well, right? Dry air for the Midwest, that's an El Nino pattern, right? Wetter times for the southeast and the southwest. Maybe some wetter conditions for the interior, maybe parts of the Rockies over the next couple of weeks or a few weeks or so. So that could certainly be something that could play out over the next few weeks as well. But again, this is pretty much looks like your token El Nino outlook, if you will. And if we just ended off here kind of looking at the 500 millibar heights to kind of see what could be in store, right? Of course, we have that Christmas system that's making its way across the Midwest. Of course, this is around next Thursday at this point. But then we see another system kind of dropping down from the north, right? Maybe as we head into New Year's Eve, right? Some cooler times, maybe some lower pressure, and you can see maybe a coastal storm on New Year's, right after New Year's. Possibility. This is very far out in time, but it's possible. And you can kind of just see that for the east, kind of get into a little bit of lower pressures, right? Maybe some stormier times. But again, this is after this 6 to 10 day and 8 to 14 day outlooks, right? Like this is January 7th now, so we're going a little bit more longer term here. But you can see maybe parade of storms, maybe get into a drier pattern over the next week, maybe two. And after that, we probably will start switching back to the pattern we were in before, maybe some wetter times and some colder times, maybe could lead to some, higher profile snowstorms for parts of the eastern U.S. Alrighty, so that is the video. Of course, stay tuned for updates about this potential Christmas snowstorm. Thank you guys so much for watching. I am the Weather Dude signing off till next time, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.